Hi there, I'm Matthew Wooding. Welcome to Ramblings of an Undiscovered Author, and today I'm joined by author of numerous books, so many books, Ian Miller. He's from New Zealand, so very similar to me, obviously from Australia. I hope you enjoy our chat. Here it is. Okay, so I'm joined all the way from New Zealand by Ian Miller. Ian, thank you so much for joining me. It's such a pleasure to have you on.
Well, thank you for having me on.
Oh, it's not a problem. Now, I just wanted to start, when I was sort of reading through your author bio, you have a very wide range of interests. It looks like there's chemistry in there, quantum mechanics, music, and of course writing. Where do you get such a wide range of things that interest you?
Oh, that's a really awkward question, that one. I suppose the wide range of interest started when I was a student at university. You know, you get tied up in all sorts of strange things. But with me, I'm one of those people, once they get attracted to something, it tends to stick. And I sort of kept with it.
No, fair enough. Now, I saw too that you were caught up in the Russian invasion of Czechoslovakia. Now, you've got to tell us about that.
Oh, yes. Some people do the obvious sorts of things for summer holidays. I was a student at Southampton University, and a postdoctoral fellow at Southampton University, and the summer vacation came along and had to do something. Now, everybody would go to the usual holiday places, but I decided to take my little car and go for a drive behind the Iron Curtain. And went through Poland and down into Krakow. And driving from Pilsen to Krakow was an interesting thing because I overtook a Russian military division. Well, actually, I think it was Polish, probably. But here was me driving down the left-hand side of the road in my little Ford Anglia, which on a cobbled street was vibrating like mad, trying to pass this barrage of trucks and tanks and all sorts of things. Nothing coming the other way, fortunately. And anyway, on the next morning, that was my last day in Poland, so I had to get out of Poland and went to Ciecierzycin and at the border there. And for some reason, they let me through. They couldn't really do very much because if you looked at the geography of the place, couldn't go back through East Germany because my passport for East Germany was done. And so they let me in, and it was then that I suddenly discovered, that tank in the middle of the square, that ain't the Czechs ready to resist. That is bad news.
So was there any ever real danger, or it was just a kind of a close shave with some old Soviet force?
I suppose there were all sorts of things that could have gone wrong. At one stage, that night, I couldn't find somewhere to stay, so I started to drive through the night. And I came over this brow and going down, and there was a little light at the side. Someone was a little fire, and all of a sudden I had an instinct, and I swung left and went through a slide, one of these four-wheel drifts, shower of stones over there. There was three Russian soldiers sitting there having a little cook-up. In the middle of the road with a camouflage netting over was a bloody tank. This was a bit of a disaster waiting there. Went on and had to stop, of course, and the next thing that happened was that I had a chance to participate in a little military history. I stopped at this little village, and when I came back to a little square because there's a whole lot of people congregated there, and they were busy turning around road signs. And there was the Polish division that I'd passed before, a little bit of it had gone through. And there was a bit of a lull. And so the next step was that what they had there, they turned the signs around, but had a guy pointing down in the direction. I told them to for the guy to point the right way, on the basis that nobody would ever believe him. And it's worked. But next, there'll be a lot of Russians or Poles that came along, they've headed off down the wrong way. And then eventually they stopped. One driver finally worked out that, this was not a good idea. He flung his truck into reverse. What he forgot was he had an artillery piece on the trailer. And the barrel of the 105mm cannon sort of went through the back of the window of the next truck. The driver ducked like mad. The crowd cheered like mad. And, that was the end of that. But I found out later that division had been split in 5 through the night, and it took them 2 days to regroup. And I suppose I could say I'm responsible for 2 of the splits anyway. And anyway, after that, I went through to Prague, and that wasn't quite so good, because I saw what was going to happen. There was a protest that came through Vincula Square, and there was a line across the road, across the square, the pavings, and Russian soldiers with machine guns on the other side of the line. And I could see, so I decided to leave this and get a building between me and it. And a few minutes later, the machine guns opened up, and there was ambulances and all. It really wasn't very attractive.
No kidding. That sounds horrible. But I mean, you would have had the best story at the end of the summer anyway, if you had summer holiday. So that's that's something.
Yeah. Well, after that, I did one more thing. I did a little smuggling event.
Oh, okay.
This just shows just how bad things sort of were. Getting out of the last little spot there, picked up some tourists. A couple of Czechs who were carrying this petition. And they wanted this petition they wanted to send it to the United Nations. And they asked me to smuggle it out for them and smuggle them out. As I said, there's no way I could hide them in a little Ford Anglia. That was just silly. But I did, when I went behind, had some emergency food. And I had this large box. And I'd kept all my rubbish, because behind the Iron Curtain I couldn't see anywhere to damn well dump it. There's no rubbish tins or anything like that. So I thought, we're not going to just litter. So what I dug all that out of the box, put the petition at the bottom with some plastic, then put it back with increasingly dirty stuff at the top, and got to the where you could get out, and the guards saw this. They couldn't understand, so they started to dig, and then of course it got smellier so they gave that up quickly, and off one went through. They let me out. Unfortunately, they let the Czechs out too.
Oh, okay.
And they were out first, and they'd told the Austrian border guards all about it. And so the Austrian border guards demanded to have it, the petition. And here I am in no man's land. Well, they know it's there. There's no point in not. So I had to give it to them. And these poor little Czechs, they thought this was a triumph. They'd got it out. What they didn't know was that would go straight back to to the Russians, because the Austrians weren't going to annoy the Russians under any circumstances.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I tell you what, that's the best story we've had on the channel so far. I can tell you that. No one else has been caught up into that. That's absolutely fascinating. Now, I have to ask, so having spent most of your life, from what I understand, most of your life you've worked in science. So I think, I was wondering, was writing science fiction something that you always had half an eye on, sort of through your career?
No, not really. Why I got writing actually that's a little story in its own right. When I was a student, it was one of the, how you go into women's halls of residence and things like that. And there was a little discussion going on there. I couldn't help myself. They kept telling these women that, it's all very well, they're studying literature. All they're going to do is damn well criticise. As a scientist, we create, we do things. They just sit there and criticise. And so they said, you couldn't think up a plot for a story. So I had a little bet with them, and I had a day to think of one. I came back and thought of one, and they were impressed. They said I ought to try and write it. Well, it never got published or anything like that, but it actually did initiate things. So later on, around about the end of the 1980s, I thought to myself I'd have another go at it, and so here we go.
Yeah, because I think, well, I counted, it's 13 novels that you've written?
Yep.
13 novels, so that's a lot of work that's got into 13 novels. Now, I want to ask too, because a lot of your books, they deal with things like declining natural resources, androids, settlements on other planets. Now, are these things that you see as possible, or that are sort of down the line for humanity, or is it just a good story?
Yes, I think, well, for example, the ones on colonisation of Mars, I made a big effort to try and get the science right on that, you know. I mean, Andy Weir did one on Mars, and that was, everybody seemed to like that. You know, they seemed to be attracted to it, so I couldn't help myself, you know. I thought, you know, I'd do something with a little bit, you know, he just stayed there and survived. I thought, okay, let's do one on colonisation. I actually did that before Weir did his, but I revised it after that.
Is that Red Gold? So I'm currently reading Red Gold.
Yes, that's the goal.
Yeah.
And after that, I did 3 more sort of Mars books.
Yeah.
So they're a mix of Earth and Mars, and they the reason that they were there is that I was interested also in governance and things like that, and economics, largely because the reason I had so much time on my hands at the end of the 1980s was that the company, my business, my private little company, had a bit of a smash up during the stock market crash that
okay.
Around about then. And I had to fire most of the staff, and I did have a bit of spare time on my hands, and so I decided to do some writing as well. And the other thing about it was that in the wash-up of that stock market crash, New Zealand got hit very badly, and there was an awful lot of fraud and things like that going on just leading up to it, and there was these share market scams and things running all over the place, and that gave me some sort of inspiration for the other part of Red Gold, which is really about a sort of a fraud, the anatomy of a fraud.
Yeah, with Newell.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it's that aspect of the book of, as I said, this is Red Gold for anyone that it'd be links for in the description if you want more information. But it's really interesting because there is like the without trying to give spoilers, there's like a business side of this settlement on Mars, and it's like I'm maybe a third of the way into it, but already you can see this. It's like people are conspiring against each other and trying to, all the time while this settlement's trying to get set up, and it's really interesting. So I think you've incorporated that really well into Red Gold.
Yeah, one of the scary things about when I set up the business, it was there to do a rather strange. I don't want to go into that right now because it'll get too long of the story. But we had merchant bankers funding us, and it was just interesting. Just when we signed one of the contracts with somebody to keep going, to get a thing in, he turns around and says, "I guess now we'll have to start playing games on you." And I thought, well, yeah, if this is the attitude, this is that saying helped the plot along of Red Gold quite nicely.
Now, for anyone that hasn't read one of your books before, and I encourage people to do so, but what do you hope that your readers come away with at the end of the book? Is there any sort of... Because they do seem... Because they're dealing with things like, declining natural resources and settlements on other planets. So there's sort of... Well, there seems to me, anyway, that there's like a theme of like a... I don't know. A theme that you might be like angling towards, I guess.
What I would like people to do, what I hope they would happen, is that it might make them think about a few things that they hadn't normally thought about. That there are long-term consequences to what we're doing. That comes, I haven't actually done climate change on the thing, but that of course is one of the things that's in the news right now. And I hope that one could, the idea is that if you get a problem like climate change, people might start to learn to think how to go about dealing with it, as opposed to, just sort of random sort of actions, which unfortunately tend to come from politicians these days.
And in your books, what is it that you get from an Ian Miller book? I mean, as you said, you get like there's sort of that message that you're conveying, but I mean, I have Red Gold as my reference point, but it seems like, other than, is there all of them that have like that sort of that business and science sort of intrigues, like trying to make the two mix together? Like what is it that you say that people get from your books?
Well, what I would like also is that they enjoy a good story. I mean, obviously, I'm a little
first and foremost, yeah.
Story, but I like to think that I've got a reason, something to keep them interested and keep them reading. I mean, at the end of the day, I want them to think that they enjoyed reading it.
Yeah. And from the ratings and reviews on Goodreads, I mean, they're all very well rated books and reviewed books. So I think you've succeeded in that as well. Now, is there anything else in the works? Any new books coming up that you're working on?
Yeah, at the moment I'm about a third of the way or half the way through it. Well, I mean, I don't know how long it's going to be, but this is the draft. It'll be a lot further away from that when I've got to do the editing and the revisions and the rewrites and all the rest of it. But I thought one would do one on space piracy.
Oh, okay.
And asteroid mining.
Oh, okay. That sounds really. Any working titles or?
No, that's the interesting thing about it. I haven't got a title yet. It's got on my computer. It's got titled SM, and I've no idea what SM stands for. But I usually start this way. I just have a couple of letters to. I've got to name the file something.
Yeah. I'm sure it'll come to you at some point. Well, Ian, thank you so much for stopping by. I've had an absolute blast talking to you. It's good to hear another sort of southern hemisphere accent, sort of all the Americans that I've had to talk to. So I love you, Americans. It was absolutely.
I love Americans too because I tend to buy my books.
But when the new one comes out, or if you ever want to stop by again, by all means, drop me a line and we can do that. But thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you.
So there we go. I hope you enjoyed that. I know I certainly did. I'd love to meet the authors of these new undiscovered books. They're really, really entertaining, aren't they? For all the information on Ian and his books, do check the description below. If you have enjoyed that as well, make sure you hit like and subscribe and hit the little bell as well so that you know every time that we upload a video, so you can meet the next author to be discovered. Now, if you are an author and you would love to appear on the channel, please do get in contact with me. All that information is in the description below as well. I'm looking for new authors all the time, and so please don't be shy, get in contact with me. But to take us out, it's Ian to read a passage of one of his books. I hope you've enjoyed that. That's it for me. We'll see you next time. Here's Ian.
Chapter 1, from Athene's Prophecy. Pallas Athene was in disgrace, but she felt it was worth every gram of it. For she had immortalised herself, starting over 3,000 years before she was born. Yes, she knew her career as a serious classical historian was over, and being consigned to this miserable cell was not exactly a career highlight. But on the bright side, the cell did not have a means of evacuation. If it did, and if there were even a remote possibility that such an evacuation could have been reported as accidental, she was quite certain she would have been consigned to the depths of space. Instead, all they could do was put her in a shuttle and return her to Earth tomorrow. They would also make certain that she would never be given permission to use the temporal viewer again. Needless to say, the ability to see and record what actually happened had totally changed the study of history. There was still the problem of interpreting why it happened, but at least the facts were right, which pleased those crusty old farts that saw themselves as the gatekeepers of the true knowledge. What was known only to a handful of classical scholars was, that there was an obscure tale of the Trojan War and somebody called Achilles, apparently told by, of all things, a blind poet of no significance. This was followed by what could be called a sequel, and this was a miserable tale of a drunkard who spent 10 years fornicating around Greece before he returned home. When he did return, he thought his wife was taking lovers, so after getting suitably drunk and unsuitably angry, in a quite messy and deplorable scene, he bludgeoned the unfortunate wooers to death. This was followed by a sequence of squalid revenge bludgeonings, the original splatter tale. She, Pallas Athene, had realised that information had neither inertial mass nor entropy, and so it was possible to be more active. She, Pallas Athene, had realised that information had neither inertial mass nor entropy, and accordingly, under certain conditions, it was possible to be more active. The key was a human's brain was always active, even when it was not doing anything significant. Hence, information could be transmitted there, redirecting electrical activity that was happening anyway without violating the laws of physics. If an historical person happened to be inside a certain configuration of stones or partially surrounded by another material with significantly high impedance, she could generate a direct communication with the subject's brain, particularly if the person was asleep or deeply relaxed. She could give seers prophecies, which were harmless because nobody believed them until they came true. She had ruined Cassandra's life, but later efforts were more fruitful. The Delphic oracle was an ideal site, and one particularly fruitful effort had been to give the oracle Galba's age, which greatly enhanced the mystique of the prophecy relating to Nero. She had drafted a short paper outlining how to do it and intended to send it out for peer review shortly. She would be famous. However, the highlight occurred in the temple in which the blind poet spent a lot of time. She, Pallas Athene, gave him visions that would improve the stories, and at the same time she inserted her name as a goddess. Once Homer realised he could get visions in the temple, he came often. For a blind man, vision was a gift from the gods. She had shown him what Ithaca, Troy and the plains of Ilios actually looked like. She could show him the battles, and more to the point, she greatly improved the second story. A squalid drunken hypocrite who killed to escape the consequences of his fornication was not the stuff of legend. Make him truly a man of wrath. With the aid of special graphics, she could show him monsters and places he could never imagine, to better account for why the hero was away so long. And she could show the bloody ending that a true man of wrath would impose. There had been a problem. The gods had only one name. Why had she called herself Pallas Athene? Yes, it was her name, but that was insufficient, so she had to concoct a story of her having devoured Pallas, which made her a twin goddess. But of what? The ferocity made warfare obvious, but the second. When the image of an irate Dr. Chu came to mind, she had said science, then added wisdom as an explanation. The blind poet was impressed and made her part of the tale. Then, to make certain of her immortality, she had recorded the colour of her eyes. Who had ever heard of a grey-eyed Greek of the period? Athene had thought that this was truly safe, because the change was noticeable only to those in the temporal satellite at the time, and who had heard of the original versions. She was currently the only classical scholar on board. The effect was startling. With such inspiration, Homer completely changed his stories, and where before they'd been eminently forgettable, and only recorded much later by sheer accident, and then largely ignored except by half a dozen scholars, suddenly history had two pieces of truly great literature. The problem was, those within the temporal satellite retained their old memories but could view the changed scenario. And because of the greatness of the stories, a prank had been uncovered. The sudden change in the name of the capital of Greece was also a bit of a giveaway. Nevertheless, it was worth the consequences. She could live with her name recorded in two of the most famous pieces of literature ever written, and having a major city named after her was an added bonus. The lights dimmed, so much so that she could barely see. Pathetic, they thought they were punishing her. Now, she thought as she lay on her bunk, with fame achieved in the dim light, she'd get a good night's sleep. In that she was wrong.